What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down a very important level for Tesla that's about to be approached and why it's going to be very important to watch this as we approach the close for today. And also what's going on with some other pieces of news. But before I break anything down, all this information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moon link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moon, deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and this offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with Tesla and the market. Looking at Tesla, we had this very, very nice looking falling wedge-like pattern. It was very, very nice to see, very beautiful. Then we got this nice attempts to break out as soon as we opened. This was actually very fun to play because, once again, you could have easily entered calls here, and this is where I entered calls, and I took profits too. It was a very, very fun trade. But then, if anything, it's very important to know that, especially when trying to play the upside or the counter trend, uh, for a stock like Tesla, which is looking relatively weak, it's always important to take profits early. So that's the reason why I took profits early, and this thing ended up tanking back down anyways. And once again, Tesla's still looking very weak. So the question is, what's going to happen over time? What on earth are we looking at for Tesla? Just as a reminder for the whole market, before I talk about Tesla, the PPI data that came out was decent. It was aligned with expectations. Then we had the big bank earnings. As a reminder, the earnings per share and the revenues were very mixed. We had some beats, some misses, and guidance was also very mixed. Some banks had strong guidance, others were not as strong. It doesn't really matter the specific details at this point because I kind of went over the majority of them, giving you guys some information about that. And you just have to know that it's mixed. The market's response is pretty mixed as well. That's all we need to know for now. So that's why the market's kind of like choppy, not really doing anything too significant. And we also had Kashkari giving a speech, didn't really say anything too significant, and all the data is very minor. But Tesla's looking very weak because of lots of bad news. We had some news about them raising prices, not prices, but first off, they're raising their wages for the production workers, which led to the share price dropping initially when the news came out, because it's going to lead to more expenditures, and many analysts are very concerned about their margins. On top of this, there's the news coming out about the price cuts in China, of course. That's also very negative because of slowing demand. And then we had production stops in Berlin for about 2 weeks amidst the things going on in the Red Sea, which is affecting the components being transported for Tesla to continue to produce. So could that be one of the reasons? Other people are speculating that it's also because of demand issues. Whatever the case is, it doesn't really matter because the bottom line is production is still being halted and it's still negative for Tesla. So now I'm going to be watching some critical levels on the share price. Tesla got a bad day today, dropping quite a bit. But I want to call out this very important support. So I'm basically going on the weekly time frame of Tesla, and we have right over here the 200 moving average on the weekly time frame that is currently at 217.5. This is going to be a very, very important level. Now, it's not just about Tesla holding this forever. It's more about, can we close above this or do we close below this? If Tesla closes below this, this is going to be a bearish signal. This is going to open more doors for more potential downside if we lose the weekly 200 moving average. If we close above this, there's still some hope for Tesla to try to hold up going into next week. But I still want to call out that the weekly looks bearish and there's a high probability of more downside. So in essence, I'm watching this very carefully to see how Tesla reacts relative to this. That's what's holding Tesla up in the 217s, this 200 moving average, and that's why Tesla's kind of like shopping around down here. But now the question is, what on earth are we going to be watching for Tesla? What are some important levels? So basically, this 217.5 zone, it doesn't have to be the exact level. It could be a little bit below, a little bit above. We have to watch and see if Tesla could hold that. If you go to the 5 minutes time frame, I called this level out in the morning. I told you guys about 217.5. And you can see Tesla's been actually kind of just like holding around that level, kind of hitting the 217 area back and forth, very close to what we were expecting. So this is something and a very, very close level that I called out. But now here are the levels. So basically, since we're below, or since we get below this 217 area, there's some resistance at 218, but it's very minor. Tesla's been kind of like in and out of 218 throughout the entire day, so it's not as bad now. The real resistance that's a lot tougher is going to be closer to 220. Getting above 220 is a lot more tricky for Tesla. We'll be watching that as a critical resistance if this thing just try to bounce. We also have 222.5, 223.5, and then 225 as resistance levels. I mentioned these levels in the morning, and you could see as Tesla pushed, we rejected the 225 is very close to that resistance, but we're coming back down. If Tesla loses the support, we have 217.5 around that range in the 217s. If we lose that 217s and we fail to get back above the 200 moving average, there's a risk of it coming all the way down to 215, then eventually that 212 to 213 area. Then we have 210 below that. So there's a risk of 215, the 215s or so. If we continue selling off and we lose the 200 moving average, I'll be watching these levels very carefully. From a technical standpoint, Tesla's looking weak. It is looking quite weak right now. It's unfortunately selling off some very bad news that came out. But just to be safe, I believe it's very important to just wait for how it closes. I think the close is going to be very important. We will see how it ends up holding up. It's down over 4% again. So wait for close. Although the technicals look very bearish, let's see how it tries to close and if it can try to close above or below our important moving average. As far as SPY goes, I mentioned to everyone that SPY would likely see a lot of choppy range-bound price action today. And I believe that that was correct for the most part because when you look at SPY, if I just pull up the hourly time frame, you will notice that we got this little pop when we opened to grab liquidity. I did also warn you all that SPY might pop when we opened. That is correct. And then we also saw range-bound price action as expected. We just went back and back and forth throughout the entire day. Basically, we're at 476.2 right now, right? We have support at 476. If we lose this, there's 475.5 followed by the 475 to 474.8 area. If we lose that, there's 474 flats followed by 472.9. For resistance, if we do try to hold 476 and start pushing up higher, there's a little resistance where this wick is at 476.5, but it's very, very minor. And because of the fact that it's chopping, the resistance levels are going to be very tight. So it's 477, little resistance at 477.5, 478 is the very tight resistance, the more significant one. So the levels are very tight, very choppy, very, very boring day. If anything, there were some good moments, but for the most part, they weren't. They were kind of rare. Now, I mentioned that, especially earlier, VWAP is going to be very important to watch. We've been going back and forth between VWAP throughout the entire day. Where we pushed above it, came below it, tested it, came above it, and back below it. So make sure you watch VWAP very carefully and see how it holds. The 5-minute 200 EMA is another support. So we have these EMAs also where it's been kind of like trading around. Very boring, mostly sideways price action, but make sure you watch those levels. All right, so if you want to be bullish on SPY, you want to see this thing break and hold and close above 478 and try to push above that. If you're bearish, you want to see it close below 474. If we end up losing that support, those are some very important levels. But as of right now, we're currently just stuck within our range. Excuse me. Our range is between 475 to about 477. We've been stuck back and forth and might just remain in this range throughout the day. For the QQQ, same thing, basically the same thing. It's been stuck between 410 and 408 for almost the entire day. One little push in the morning to grab some stops before it came back down. Back and forth price action, up and down and up and down. It's just pretty boring. If you want to be bullish, well, it's very simple. You want to try to break above 410, close above that, and there's going to be some potential for the bulls. For bearish, you want to see it lose 408. If we lose this, it could be coming down to 407, followed by 405.7. However, we're pretty much just range bound back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we're kind of stuck for now. So we'll just have to see how it goes. As far as Nvidia goes, just want to mention that Nvidia is also kind of range bound. Actually, it's exactly range bound in within the ranges I called out almost exactly. So basically, we had 550 as resistance, 542 as our support. We did hold that during the pre-market, and we've been going back and forth since. We also chopped around the 545s. Once again, stuck within our range, not really doing much. So it's very boring. Not really a whole lot is going on. Back and forth price action. And we've been stuck ever since. Watch this range right here in the 545s to 546s. Very, very tight range. If we lose this, 542 is going to be our key level of support. Resistance is going to be around 550. For critical resistance, I mean, if we get above the resistance I called out, we could favor the bulls. If we get below 542, we favor the bears. Otherwise, we're just range bound, and that's likely what's going to happen. So I do favor us being range bound on Nvidia. It's just stuck, not really doing much, kind of boring. That's all I'm seeing for now on Nvidia. So we'll have to see what happens going into next week. Oh, and just as a reminder, I forgot to mention this, guys. I'm so sorry. Uh, the market's going to be closed on Monday for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's going to be closed in commemoration of him, his legacy, and his work. So it's very important. So that's part of why the market's just very choppy, very boring, just getting ready for the weekend. We'll see if we get some kind of like small sell-off at the end of the day for profit taking. We'll see if that happens. But otherwise, it's just kind of boring. Last but not least, for Apple stock, Apple is just range bound. back and forth and back and forth, exactly as predicted. So we attempted to go higher. We tried to get up to this 186.5 area. Then we came back down. We're stuck at support of 185. If we're bullish, we want to close above 186.5 in favor of the bulls a bit. For bearish, you want to see it lose 185 and come down towards 184.25. To be like really bearish, you want to see it close below 184.25 as well. For now, we're just back and forth, but we're actually testing the very low 185, so watch that very carefully. We might remain range bound for the most part. I think it's going to be very tight, but watch this support at 185. We'll see if this holds or not, but there's a little bit of weakness for the last 2 hours. But besides that, guys, Apple is still in the range, at least for now. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be paying some very close attention to this pre-market low as well, just to be safe. But that's it for Apple. Kind of stuck within the range. I'm going to be watching 185 very carefully if I were to be watching this. But with that being said, kind of boring. Power hours basically starting. One more hour left until the long weekend. So do what you have to do, guys, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. As far as Tesla goes, do not forget about the important support on Tesla. It is barely holding around that 217.5 area. So be very careful on Tesla. Very choppy, but be very careful. See how it closes, and then we'll be ready for there. Otherwise, it's just going to be very choppy, likely for the rest of the day, and we might see some more volatility for the last like 15 minutes. That's it, guys. Have a great day. Enjoy the weekend. I'll be back later on. Thank you and peace out.